Hello, everyone. Welcome to the, anyone a hacker here? Everyone? Okay, this is supposed to be the, you can beat the hackers. So my name is Phil Newman. I'm a program manager on Office 365. I'm joined by John and Stu, who will be presenting with me. We also have some of my peers here on our advanced protections team. We have our designer, the guy who does all of our UI work here. And today we're going to talk about the improvements that we've brought into Office 365 threat intelligence and how it can really help you stay on top of these attacks. We're going to talk about a few things. We're going to talk about how we can help you understand what's hitting your organization, but more interestingly, how you can detect when something's come in and how you can undo the work that an attacker has done so that you can save some cost. So a bit about me before I start. I've been at Microsoft for 9 years. I joined Office 365 pretty much right at the start. And the reason I love this space so much is that I'm very passionate about data. I feel like a few years ago, big data became a thing, and then it turned out that we just had huge piles of data and no way to interpret it. And I feel like the security space is a lot like that, especially when you start getting into post-breach and you start getting into trying to find patterns and trying to say, of these 1,000 attacks that happened today, which is the one that I should care about? And those are very difficult problems to solve, and I'm really excited about the technology that we've built to solve some of those problems. So before I get started, I just want to kind of reprime some of the messages that we've had around Office 365 information protection this week and the key pillars that we've been working on for the last year and the themes that are going to carry us forward a little bit. And what we're going to touch on most in this session is intelligence-powered insights and reducing cost of ownership, which really means time on your SOC teams, and also number of breaches that happen and reducing that kind of loss. And here's how we're going to structure the talk. We're going to talk about what's different this year than last year with the threat landscape. We're going to talk about how you can be more proactive about your defense in Office 365. We're going to talk about the tools that we have to do investigation and response when there is a campaign that hits you. We're going to talk about some of the new exciting work that we've done around people-centric detections and cloud intelligence. And this is along the lines of the 1,000 attacks that happened today, which ones are the ones I should care about? People often ask me the question, well, tell me who's under attack in my organization. And we've got this tool, you can type in their name, and if you type in anybody's name, you'll see they're under attack all the time. So in this section, we're going to talk about how we're really bubbling up those attacks that matter to you. And the last thing is going to be about taking the tools that we have, that we've built in threat intelligence, and spreading them elsewhere in Office 365 outside of email, because we're seeing that attackers are getting a lot more clever and going more places and not just using email anymore. So without further ado, let's get into it. So this is Deborah here? We have our marketing guy here normally too, and he makes these nice slides. And the point of this is that it's scarier and scarier every day. The trends that we're seeing are, the volume doesn't really matter anymore because there's so much of it. And what we're seeing is that instead of higher volume, what we get is more sophisticated, lower volume attacks that have a higher cost per incident. So, a year ago, 2 years ago, we follow some publications that talk about what's the black market value of stolen credentials, or, ransomware was really big, where you try to get $200 per attack. We're not really seeing as much of that anymore because it's not as profitable in the long term, and really these attackers are going after money. So this is saying it costs money and it's scary. And really, so do folks here work on security response teams, email protection? So anybody security response? Just protecting email? Protecting endpoints? Okay. So you guys know all about this, right? You have a team of 6 of you, and then there's the attacker who has, tons of resources and tons of visibility. And the way that things have been so far is that you have to catch everything that the attacker does if you want to stay on top of the attacker, but the attacker only has to evade you once. And this slide is really meant to say that in a world where traditionally the attacker has had an edge, we have to evolve our tools so that we can kind of change the tables or turn the tables around. So the tools that we're bringing today kind of cover those bottom points. And so that brings us to my next point, which is around how we think of attacks in Office 365 and kind of outside of Office 365. And when I started working on this problem, we kind of thought of attacks going linearly along the kill chain. that there's the recon and then the initial exploits and so on, and you move through. And it turns out that with the kinds of attacks that we see in email, it's very interesting to think about them in another way, to think about what is the attacker's intent with the attack. So I like breaking it out onto two axes, where on this plot, every blue dot is an event that is part of an attack. And if you looked at a large organization over a period of a month and you sorted them all by how far along they progressed in the attack versus how severe they are, how much damage they would do to your organization, you kind of see this. And so at the very bottom, you get this large cluster of attempted attacks that may or may not have intended to be that dangerous. They might be one of those attacks that just intend to steal your credentials and resell them on the black market. But by the time that you notice that, you can change the password, and that's not really valuable. And those are such high volume, and we found that they've taken up so much time for security responders that we initially focused there with our tools. That if you can detect this kind of stuff early and prevent it from moving up on the attack progression chain, that you've done a very good job. Now, kind of in line with the theme that I was mentioning earlier of more sophisticated attacks, what we found is there's less visibility into the dots that are kind of further up and to your right on this chart that are more impactful. So dots like, stealing documents from OneDrive for Business, or an insider selling data, or database exfiltration. These are all events that are very difficult to detect, and they happen very infrequently, but when they do, it's millions of dollars instead of tens of dollars or hundreds of dollars. So the theme that we have with Office 365 threat intelligence is kind of thinking past the protection piece. It's thinking about how can we evolve our system to give you awareness of what events are happening inside of your Office 365 tenant that are dangerous, and then adding the color onto them of where do they really fit on this axis of severity. Is it just someone that's trying to steal your password and username, or is it someone that's actually trying to do harm to your business? So keep that in mind as we keep going. I'll refer back to it. And at the end of the day, it's all about saving money, right? Like the theme of total cost of ownership. And we have solutions that fit into before the breach, during the breach, and after the breach. And in fact, who was at the previous talk about advanced threat protection? Okay, so a few of you saw that. We have a whole set of tools that help you keep attacks out. We have some tools that we'll talk about that will help during the breach make things faster. And then there's some post-breach and even before breach tools that are kind of post-breach too that we'll talk about. So every year I like to talk about the kinds of attacks that people are the most scared about. Last year we talked about Locky ransomware. Who was hit by ransomware last year? Okay. So we talked about how the attacker used infrastructure, and they had these macros that downloaded stuff, and then they'd ask for $200. But it turns out none of you paid them, right? You just restored, and we've improved our systems. So ransomware is still a thing, right? There was WannaCry and Petya this year, a lot of big ransomwares. But what we're seeing this year is more of a theme of these more sophisticated attacks. So whenever there's an attack, you have your attacker, and the attacker always has a goal and a plan. And in this case, we see this pretty commonly of do some social engineering to get wire transfers from an organization. And these attacks, I think, are particularly relevant for this crowd because you can do that attack all within the confines of Office 365 and never compromise an endpoint. And we're seeing more and more of this happening. So, so you get your plan of infiltrate corporate accounts, move around, learn about processes, spoof people, and then eventually get to where you want to be. And how these work inevitably, or generally, is you get your attacker who sends lots of fish mails. And some of the fish mails get through, lots of them get blocked. And it turns out that there's this guy, Jack. And Jack clicks the link. And any Jacks? Anyone have a Jack in their organization? Yeah. We all have a Jack, right? So when he gets Jack, it's like, okay, great. Now the attacker is Jack. He has access to Jack's account. Maybe multi-factor auth is off, and you should have turned that on. We've seen some really interesting cases where there's so much multi-factor auth happening that people are just approve. And if an attacker comes in, and Jack sees the prompt, he's like, oh, I get so many of these, just approve. Like, we're starting to see that with the proliferation of MFA. So there's all sorts of ways around all the protection that we have. But anyways, the idea here now is that the attacker, as Jack, does some recon and learns about the other people in the organization and learns about Jill and Bob, and that learns that Jill can approve vendor payments up to $25,000, and Bob's the guy who manages the payments and makes the requests. So Jack then does another targeted campaign that goes after Jill and Bob, And in reality, in most organizations, there's multiple Jills and Bobs, so you don't need to get specifically Jill and Bob, but you need to get the Jills and Bobs of the organizations. And then now Jack has access of the 3 accounts, still all within Office 365. And now Jack doesn't really matter that much anymore because the attacker has Jill and Bob. And then the attacker does some more research and finds that there's a SharePoint website that, that has an automated workflow that processes these things and adds things to queues, and there's automation. And that Bob's the guy who puts the document in the library to trigger the whole thing off, and he does it Tuesdays. So the attacker's been around for a while by now, hasn't really been detected, but then all the work is done, right? So if you have Jill's account and Bob's account, you can create the payment request on a Tuesday as Bob. You can go in and create a rule in the mailbox to suppress notifications. Say, anyone can create a rule for a mailbox. So if the subject contains, something that is extracted from the workflow, just don't even show that to Jill. Then he uses Jill's account to approve the transfer and gets $24,999 and repeats it every Tuesday. And these are the kinds of attacks that we're starting to see get a lot more visibility, even though they're not, they're not the kinds of things that our ATP guys see and block in high volume every day. But when we think about impact and when we think about where we think this or where we see the space is going, we see these kinds of things. So a question that I get a lot about, what is the positioning of Office 365 threat intelligence when we talk about it? And really, when I think about it, we've started with a lot of work around helping you understand email attacks because those are the highest volume, and there's a lot of impact with them. But as we keep evolving the product, our goal is to really color these events onto that chart for you so that you can look at them and say, okay, someone's got Jack, and then he got Jill, and then he got Bob, and now $24,999 every week is happening. So that's where we're going with this. And as we do the rest of the presentation, we're going to kind of tie it back to this as to here's the tools that we have, and think about this attack where there's the phishing and the compromise. And here's how we give you the tools to stay ahead of this attacker. So along those themes, I'm going to invite Stu up on the stage. Stu's a colleague of mine working on a new advancement to help you guys educate your users and find holes, find the jacks.
Thanks, Phil. So as Phil mentioned, I work alongside Phil and John. We do a lot of customer-facing security. One of the things we want to kind of talk about is how do we find out Jack before this happens? So who here has kind of active penetration tests in their organization? Who makes that a regular occurrence? Good, a few hands. At Microsoft, we live and breathe penetration testing. It's incredibly useful for us. A lot of the findings find their way back into the organization. And for a while now, we've been thinking, how can we kind of take the tools and the techniques that we use and kind of give them to tenants? How can we give you the same kind of tooling and functionality that we have so you can start to run your own penetration tests? And that's exactly what we're going to be doing. So this January, we're going to be releasing a feature called Attack Simulator, which basically is going to let you do that. It's part of the Threat Intel suite. So we have that neat package of end-to-end, so you can identify the threats within Threat Intel. You can start to look at the relationships that John's going to talk about later. And we're then going to give you the ability to run benign attacks against your own environment. So we will let you find that Jack before Jack becomes the actual victim. And one of the reasons we want to do this is a lot of customers, the first time they kind of start to think about what's my security incident response to an attack is when an attack happens. We want to kind of shift that paradigm and help you become a lot more proactive in what will my response be? How can I start to educate my end users? How can I kind of change the paradigm so I'm a bit more offensive in how I am protecting my environment instead of living in this reactive world where I'm waiting for the attack to happen to me all the time. So we're going to kind of walk you through and give you the tooling to enable you to be able to kind of do that. What makes a good attack? So what I'm showing you here is, as I mentioned, Microsoft runs a lot of penetration testings. We've had one a couple of weeks ago. These are samples of a couple of spear phishing emails that were sent within our organization, and these were crazy successful because they look professional. You can go and buy kits on the internet today that will let you create incredibly realistic spear phishing packages such as this and have them used within your environment. As Phil mentioned, They don't need any footing for your infrastructure in order to do this. It can actually be done incredibly easy and incredibly cheaply. These two are probably easily the most successful attacks we've ever kind of run against ourselves internally. To the point where, if you can see in this one particular one, we'll kind of walk through the detail here. The open relays. We had a couple in Microsoft. We don't mind admitting. They got used as the initial footing, which enabled somebody to spoof somebody within the organization. And there was a lot of recon that happened. So the person they spoofed, they deliberately targeted. So they went for somebody who had a job title, as you can see here, within product marketing for a particular division within Microsoft, and then sent out an email saying, go here to get your advanced employee edition. Given the nature of who that email came from, the success rates on this were up in the 63% range in terms of who actually took the required action within the phish itself. We saw the use of CID tags. So it's a very hard thing to do, placing a CID tag within a phishing message. It's pretty complex, but it lets you bypass some of the Outlook detections. Outlook doesn't prompt you that there's an attachment in a message if you use CID tags, because the image itself is within the message, and it just arrives on the client. So again, it defeats some of the built-in protections that the Outlook client offers you within the environment. URL obfuscation compounds the problem. We see these used. And the other thing is, attackers are not afraid to spend money to make these things look realistic. So in these particular attacks, URLs were registered in the attacker's name and set up to actually kind of receive the email that the attackers wanted to send in this. So there's lots of things we need to be aware of. All phishes are kind of not equal, as we say. So what we're kind of saying is that, what if you could run this kind of attack yourselves via the Threat Intel Center? It would be great, yeah? We're going to let you do exactly that. So what I'm going to do now is kind of demo how you can run a spear phishing campaign against your own tenant using the tooling that we're going to have within the service itself. We're going to kind of adapt the attack, so we're not just going to have spear phishing attacks in there, because we talked about penetration testing. There's going to be a multitude of attacks. We're going to offer spear phishing, brute force, and password spraying at the start when we release in January, but over time we hope to add to those attacks to kind of expand the portfolio of what we're going to offer. What we want to focus on is making sure that we deliver to you attacks that we are seeing in the wild today. So leveraging Phil's threat intel work about what is live, what are we seeing in the real world, they will eventually become attacks that you can then simulate yourself within the environment. So how would we go about doing this? So as you can see, we're in threat management dashboard here. I have attack simulator. The first thing I want to do is schedule attack. And we have this concept of a campaign, like any kind of good phishing thing. So we'll just call this one Ignite Demo. Next thing we do is kind of pick our targets. Okay, who are we going to phish? So we give you the option to basically select people from within your tenant. So you can pick individuals, you can pick groups, you can kind of decide, okay, I'm going to go for HR today. I'm fed up with HR. Let's target them. We're all going to do it. And off we go. So then we can praise, okay, what do we want the email to look like? How believable do we want to do this? So we just have a display name that we can craft anything we want. Ignore my spelling, we won't kind of get too up. And then we have the from address. Now this is particularly important. So what we can let you do with the from address, you have two options. You can make a campaign look like it has come from external of your organization, or you can have it look like it has come internal. As Phil mentioned, internal phishing attacks from a mailbox that actually exists within your tenant are on the increase at an exponential rate. We'll just see kind of one mailbox get compromised, and that gets used as a foot-in to actually launch phishing campaigns. So we're giving you the option to do both. The logon server URL, we're going to have a list here of nice-looking namespaces that you can pick, because this is going to be a credential harvest attack that we're going to do. And this will basically appear as the URL within the email. The subject, we just call it whatever we want, something convincing. Please update details. And then we have the body of the email itself. So this is just pure HTML. So when we ship the tool, it's actually going to be a HTML editor within the experience itself. But for now, we're just going to copy and paste my HTML from here. The thing to note in the HTML is that we have these tags in here. So we have a username tag, which basically means when we send a phishing attack, it's going to look like it's explicitly sent for that individual target. So if you picked 15 targets, each one would receive that personalized email. We click on Next. The wireless in here is pretty. There we go. Awesome. Click on Finish. And off it goes. So that attack has now gone off. A bit about the tech behind that. We're not using transport to deliver these messages because we know like ATP is going to catch things like this. We want this to be a test of the end user. We want to kind of be educating our end user and see the end user responses. So we're using direct injection into the mailbox of the messages itself on purpose just so we can kind of delete those things. So here we have now, this mail has just turned up from this guy. Excuse the lag while it kind of comes through. And here we see the email I just crafted. So I've got a nice looking email in here. I've got a link that I can kind of dive off to. I click on the link. Oh, this looks legit, apart from the fact it's like 2013 at the bottom. But it's basically the cloned 0365 logon page. From here, we just kind of get the victim to put their credentials in. And this is actually a working web page, so you actually get errors. So if you put in an account that doesn't meet the requirements, it will tell you, please enter a valid account. So again, it really does try to dupe you into thinking you're going to the right place. You hit sign in, and oh dear. We take them to a landing page. One of the things, this is not going to be ready at release, but we are going to kind of have it into the feature eventually, is the ability to have a customized landing page. So a lot of organizations have their own internal training, their own policies around IT and how you should be dealing with phishing. So we are going to give the ability ultimately to customize the landing page for your campaign so you can kind of redirect them to any internal training you have, or you'll be able to opt for the kind of generic 0365 one. And so we've now, okay, I'm a bad user, I clicked on this. So if I now kind of go back to the experience myself, we track the campaign usage in terms of what's happening. So every campaign you run has an associated report with it that kind of gives you the details. So the number of users you've targeted, links clicked, etc. We'll kind of give this a second to refresh itself. Ignite demo, one of one user compromised. So what we show is the targets who you sent the email to. The Stuart CL address is the email address behind Mr. Heiko Schultz. And we indicate that he clicked on the link and he supplied his credentials. So you're going to get two types of victim with a phishing campaign. You're going to get the guy who clicks the link, thinks it looks a bit suspicious, and he's going to exit stage left, and he's not going to go any further with it. Or you get the person who goes full in, clicks the link, enters his credentials, and gives away the keys to the kingdom. So we're going to kind of report on that data back. And then ultimately, we want to give you the option to take actions on these users. So we're going to have some action buttons here in terms of allowing you to educate the user, referring them to your own internal training, to enable MFA. Hey, let's enable MFA for this user. It wasn't turned on. Let's taser this user. That feature's coming kind of next year, the ability to kind of electroshock someone if they've clicked on the link. And then other things like reset their password. So again, we don't want this to be just a reporting tool that just kind of, yeah, I've got some users who are susceptible to this. We want to then link it back to the tech that we have to enable you to help mitigate these scenarios in the future as we go through. Okay, so that's me out of time. I'm going to just flip back to the slide and hand over to Mike.
While Stu's switching back, I just want to tell a quick story of an anecdote of, oh yeah, thanks, Stu. So we always, who has a boss, right? We always want to impress our bosses. And all of the VPs at Microsoft, once a year, they go off to this resort somewhere and they meet and talk about what we're doing as Microsoft. And we obviously want them to think about security. So ahead of this, we were planning to tell them about, here's what we're doing in Office 365 for security. And ahead of it, we phished them. So we got all, it's pretty easy to find. There's about 200 people that are CVP or higher at Microsoft. I'm sure any of you could do it if you took a day in LinkedIn, right? And then we kind of knew which resort they were going to, and we spoofed that resort, and we said, do you want chicken, beef, fish, or veggie? 63% of our executives clicked on the link. So just goes to say that these, and then we were like, hey, did you guys see this email? Yeah, and they're like, yeah, that was us. This is why you need our protection. Anyways, I digress. The next set of things we want to talk about are around incident investigation and response. So again, we do everything that we can to keep the bad stuff out, but we really want to give you the right tools to understand what's going on when Jill and Bob and Jack do get compromised. So what we do with threat intelligence is we take signals from all of these various sources inside of Office 365, and we've created some tools that help you navigate through all of them to construct the story of the attack. So you can take this information and turn it into some intelligent analysis and then figure out what to do with it, kind of along the themes that I was talking about at the start, of starting with a mountain of data and turning it into something useful for you. And this is a slide that our marketing guy really loves. And the point of it here is not only is the data that we have all of the data about what's going on in Office 365 in your own organization, it's enriched by signals that we have from Office 365 running the biggest set of operating systems and email service and everything else, everything else. We have lots of big things. That's what this slide says, and it should make you better. It should make your security posture better. And we do share signals within Microsoft with other products to really enhance that. So with that, I want to get into some demos. Let's get this up here. I'm going to be showing you. Has anyone seen Office 365 Threat Intelligence as it is today? The Threat Explorer, that kind of stuff? Okay. So I'm going to start with an intro. Last year at Ignite, we announced the new threat intelligence features, and we started really with the malware types of attacks because those were big at the time, and we had really good, strong signals for them. And what we built, we built a few things. The main thing that we showcased last year was the Threat Explorer. And a lot of the enhancements that we've done in the product to go deeper in these scenarios have been in the surface of the Threat Explorer. And I just want to show you what, yeah, I need to change my password in 4 days. So the main view that we have in the Threat Explorer, we have a number of different views, and the main one is malware. It's the one we built first. And the idea here is we start with, here are the things that Office 365 blocked for you, and we wanted to make sense of it. And it turns out that with email campaigns, there's a number of different keys that you can use to find out what other messages are similar to the message I have. In fact, that's one of the hardest questions to answer when you find some dot on that blue chart of what are the other dots that are related to it as part of the same attack. And we've tried to demystify that with the Threat Explorer. So for malware campaigns, if you cluster by malware family, you can kind of see there's this red one here that happens to be this VBS, this Visual Basic Script, probably a macro downloader, and so on. I don't want to dwell on this for too long, but the idea with this is you can drill down kind of arbitrarily deep, but we've also put some signals in here that make it really interesting. So for instance, protection status. You can say, show me all of the messages that were actually caught after delivery that have risk for users in my organization to help actually make it more actionable. So we've got that. I'm going to go into a bit more of the functionality tour when we get in there. Another thing that we do that I find pretty interesting is we, for any threat that we can have some intel on, we'll tell you what it is. So for instance, you see this malware family, Win32, Vibachi, and we know that's a password stealer. So at Microsoft, we have the intel that knows that this is a password stealer, so you're not just kind of looking at something without knowing what the implications would be should it get through in your organization. The other thing that we have on here is information about where else we've seen this threat in the world, which really helps you get context from Office 365 about how dangerous is this to me. If you see that a campaign is small or targeted at your industry or your country, it's probably an attacker that's more invested in doing harm than someone who's just spraying something across the globe. So if you're looking at this attack, you can see over time we see about 50,000. Most weekdays we see about 50,000 of these, and these ones are distributed over mostly in the U.S. and then in the U.K. and then touching these industries. So we've taken all the data that we have about these threats and we've augmented it with some information about our customer base for you. And that was kind of where we started. Along with some tools, some really interesting tools, you can switch, instead of looking at malware, you can go look at all email. And then when you're looking at all email, you can see, here's all the messages, and you can figure out, you can search by subject, you can search by sender IP, you can search by network message ID. So if there's something that you're looking for, we've given you the tools to find it and really understand what's going on. One of the themes that we have is around, so this is kind of saying, if you know which blue dot you're looking for, we'll help you find it. And the theme that we have moving forward is about helping you discover what those blue dots are. So the first scenario I want to get into is a pretty common one these days, and it's about what happens when something gets missed and gets into your organization. So everyone's familiar with our, oh, something went wrong. I was going to show you guys something. So we have a button in Outlook that says report phish or report junk. Traditionally, that's just, in the previous session, they talked about it a little bit, but who has their own custom process for reporting phish inside the organization? They email you or something, go to some site. So the idea is that we start with this. If you use our own, so I'm assuming you also get the email forwarded to you so you can kind of look at it and study it. We have something similar now here, and Donna showed you this a bit in the previous session if you were there, but I want to dive in and kind of get into where this really becomes useful. So I'm going to look for a specific one from a specific email. Let's see if I can show you that email. It's doing it. Complete your survey. So this is a standard HR thingy. Complete your survey, click on this thing, and then Jack clicks on it, and you know what happens. But say Jack clicks the Tell You About It button. So what you'll see, and in fact, we did an education campaign in the Microsoft tenant last week. We got 386 people that clicked the report phish button. So if you were looking at this for Microsoft, you'd see low volume, huge spike, meaning there's lots that got in the inbox. And then for each of those, you can see what is the details about the mail. I'm going to open up this one, which is for this that mail I was just showing you. And so we have a link to download the message here if you want to see what it is. We're telling you, you can see where it's coming from, or the address that's being spoofed. But what's a lot more interesting is we have some information. We've extracted the URLs from the email. Because phishing is so common these days, and it's usually URLs, we wanted to do that. Now, the first question you have is, who else got this? What are the other blue dots that surround this blue dot on my attack chart? And so what we've done is when I clicked on that, we opened up the all email view in the Explorer, and we're showing some of the new filtering capabilities because we've started indexing all emails for all URLs that are in all emails. So now you can do a search like show me all of the emails that have this URL and not have to wait for content search to take hours to go through your entire corpus. So in this case, and so what we've done is this view that we've created for phishing, we start with here's the emails that contain this URL pivoted by whether they were delivered or blocked, kind of to really help you understand what is the risk profile from this campaign. Now in this case, you can see 230 or so blocked and 14 or so delivered. And beneath that, we have what are the clicks that happened in those emails. So you can type any URL in that, and you can see what clicks originated from them, what emails. So we've really tied all those things together. And again, you can pivot this by what was the click verdict, did we allow it or not? So in this case, there's a few that are allowed, a few that are blocked. We'll alert you when there's a URL that switches from good to bad, so you don't have to kind of happen upon this. So whenever our lists get updated or we have the capability to find a phishing campaign that was partially delivered, you'll get an alert about that too. Another cool thing with this is, with the Threat Explorer, any chart you can pivot by a number of different dimensions so that you can get more insight into what's happening. So John's going to talk about this a little bit later, but I'm going to hint at it here. So we've put recipient department as one of the things that you can pivot by. So because we are integrated into Azure Active Directory, and because a lot of our customers put information about people in the Active Directory, we can actually join that with Mailflow and start to answer those questions of how are all of the people that were targeted by this attack, how are they related? So I'm going to just kind of hint at that, and John's going to go in a lot more depth about that in a minute. But now, OK, so we found this thing. It was reported. There was 5 successful clicks. What do you want to do? Well, in this case, there's some blocked clicks, so you don't really have to worry about blocking clicks. But if you find this before we know that it's bad, we'll list all of the URLs. And I just kind of want to go in a bit more depth with this because it's important. So in this case, this was a demo one, so it's pretty simple. And we just have this survey. But in reality, we find that URLs morph just like malware morphs, kind of. And that there's some patterns that you can see if you look at it. So sometimes you'll see day after day after day, there will be a different domain, but if you look at the middle of the URL, like that part of the path will not change. And so we've extracted all of those. So we have a few different parts here. It might be hard to see. Can I zoom in on this? So we have URL host, the domain plus the path, just the path. So if you see that, one day you get abc.com/get.php/API something, like you see that, and you get that Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, you can create a query that finds all of those and go from there. Another thing with this, so we can pivot by anything. You can add an arbitrary number of filters. But you can also save one of these and get alerts, and John's going to go into a bit more detail too. So if you see that that's happening day after day, we'll tell you about it before it gets bad. The other thing that we have in here is so we always show you the list of email messages. If you wanted to get the ones that were delivered, you could also do that. But we've created a way to track these campaigns that get through so you can have some story about them that you can remember. And so we've created a container called an incident. And the whole point of this is to track the emails that are part of something that got through, but also to trigger actions on them like delete them, move them to junk, but also to create an audit trail of who does that in your organization, and also have an undo button, because we find that sometimes people delete things by accident. So I'll just show you a quick demo of how this works. So this was the HR fish. And now we're saying, I'm adding all of these email messages that were the result of that query to this incident. And then if I go over to my review section, I have a list of all the incidents. And I can open this up. And I can look at so if over time you find more and more messages, you can kind of keep adding them into the incident. And then we have actions that you can take on all of these messages. So we have move to junk, move back to inbox if you did it by accident. And there's 3 more that we're building, or that we've built, that are going to light up real soon. One is hard delete, soft delete, and then move to deleted items so that you can really get it out of the inbox. I particularly really like soft delete because it's invisible to the end user, but it's undoable if you screw up. So we were a little scared about putting some of those in at the start, but we've got some feedback that folks really wanted it. And kind of the whole time, as we've developed this, we've worked very closely with the Microsoft IT department, their SecOps team. Unfortunately, we have one of their managers was here this week, and he left earlier today. I was really hoping that he'd be able to talk to you guys about how he uses it, because they have a different perspective on the value of these tools. But they've been using it for the last 6 months and responding to incidents in Microsoft. So kind of back to this scenario where there's the fish, and kind of tying into what I was mentioning earlier, is that we realize that it goes beyond email. And what we're starting to do more and more is to pull in interesting activities that are related to attacks and that are dangerous. So who's familiar with our audit data and the management activity API, that kind of stuff? So we have a log in Office 365 of pretty much everything that happens. And that log kind of has some of the same problems, that it's a mountain of data, and it's kind of hard to distill it. So, and it's been, there's so much of it that we've had to optimize for storage, and we've had to optimize for audit and legal requirements, and we haven't really made it great in the past for doing security investigations. We're moving in this direction where we're taking all of this data to help really paint the color of the attack. So there's some things that we see that once an attacker gets in, they do in Office 365. One of them is they create mail forwarding rules, or they create mail delete rules. We see mass downloads. We see access from unusual locations at strange times of the day. One thing that we're really excited about that we're working on is to come up with signals like Stu's account was used at a strange time of day to enumerate a whole bunch of SharePoint sites, then download all the stuff that's tagged as confidential. Because those things, when you look at them, it just seems like, yeah, that's really sketchy and I want to know about it. The real trick, though, is when we started prototyping some of these detections in Microsoft, what we found is that they were incredibly noisy. That a lot of these problems are very difficult because the baseline is inherently noisy, right? Like my access patterns in OneDrive for Business might be I hook up a sync client one day, so I get a huge spike, and then the rest of the time there's not much going on. So, so we're working a lot on fine-tuning those algorithms, and directionally our goal is to, again, color those dots on that chart of we found these activities that all together appear suspicious, and really color that with the content classification that we have from the rest of our protection system in Office 365. So the point here is, so in my example attack, Jack's account got compromised. Jill had a forwarding rule or a mail delete rule added. There's these behaviors that are on here that, and the simplest one is after the click, what strange logins happened in an account, right? So if you want to kind of complete the user reported a phish, there was 300 of them, 20 got delivered, there were 5 clicks that happened. Of those 5 clicks, is there any sign of compromise? So we really have these tools, and this view will really help you kind of get that first level, and then directionally we're working on building a lot more intelligence into it. So that's our phishing attack response and our risky activity investigation, and now I'll hand it over to John, who's going to talk to you about some of the really exciting things that we're doing to get some more intelligent detections in Office 365.
Thank you, Phil. All right, so let's talk about some other items here on people-centric detections and leveraging our cloud intelligence. Microsoft, with the Office 365 environment, obviously has lots and lots of different customers like you with your information flowing through our infrastructure. And one thing we're trying to do with threat intelligence is leverage that to help you understand when you in particular are concerned. So this is something we're building in and will be available shortly, along with visibility about not just your tenant, but potentially which users you need to be concerned about. The issue is, when you are looking at all of this data like Phil showed on the chart, how do you know when your business is actually being targeted? There's a lot of noise there, right? This happens day after day after day. It's not a question of who is being attacked, it's how many times are they being attacked, and should we really be caring about whether Jason here, who works with me, he's actually under active attack, and there's something you need to look at and pay attention to for Jason in particular. Likelihood he's been here a while, gets lots of malware going to him. So if you just sit there and look at malware accounts, it doesn't really matter because Jason's seeing stuff. The other issue too is for some of these attacks, how do you know when your tenant is being attacked with something different? And so we are looking at all of these attacks across the entire environment. You see there's a kind of a lighter blue one in there. The issue is all these attacks are equal. They don't always hit different tenants at different times. This is because attackers are going around. They may have just a big giant list they go off the internet somewhere. They may be targeting you specifically. And by looking at these different environments and comparing statistics across the stuff, you saw the little chart we had there of global distribution of malware, we can actually analyze that stuff to understand when in particular you need to be concerned about a specific problem. And we do that by looking at all these statistics, gathering up the stuff for your tenant specifically, and then comparing it to the rest of the world so we can say, look, this is a virus or an issue you need to pay attention to. We are going to show you all the ones that got blocked, but it's going to indicate maybe where somebody's starting to target you. And we'll show you how that works in the console here in just a second. The key point is we are trending that stuff so you can now see today, what am I seeing? What do I need to pay attention to? Who's getting attacked? Maybe I need to start looking at those folks. And we'll update that information over time, as we'll see in the user interface here. The capability here we're looking at is under a new feature set called trackers. So if I go down here, this new concept of trackers is built on top of Explorer. So what we have in Explorer is basically an investigation tool. You go build queries. And we're taking that now and leveraging it and saying, let's go build queries for you. Some of these will come out of the box, so to speak, or out of the cloud. Things like Noteworthy, for example. Now, I'm sure those of you working in email or in the security ops space were probably getting lots of questions like, what's going on with Petya? How many people had questions from their boss about Petya or WannaCry? Let's see a show of hands on that one, right? They probably came back day after day and said, hey, are we seeing any of this? So we are building in some standard rule sets for noteworthy attacks. These things morph over time. My 6th day on the job, I was actually working with Phil, and it was Petya Day. And it was really interesting seeing kind of these bits of information morph. And so using this idea of the tracker, Microsoft can build a rule set and deliver it to you when you see these big attacks happening to say, look, here's Petya, here's WannaCry. You'll notice here, we're not really going to show much in the way of Petya because it was not an email-based virus. Doesn't mean your boss won't come and say, what's going on with Petya today? So being able to say, look, we have some analysis of Office 365 traffic. Here's what's going on with Petya. And as I told you yesterday, Mr. Boss, this is not an email virus. We still see nothing here. Part of what we have is the ability then to go explore of these things. And as the signature morphs from being, hey, here's a couple SHA-256s, here's some file names, here's a bad IP, we build those things into this query. We can then actually go and morph that as we start seeing actual signatures out of our system. And that did not work, so let's go click back into the Explorer side. It will take that particular set of attributes we're looking for and filter through Live and Explorer and see right now what am I seeing for the past X number of days, and right now my filter is set to 14 days. So over the last 14 days, I clicked on the Nemacod one, not Petya, because that wouldn't be very exciting to show. And we can see here that we have 41 different attempts that have happened over the last 2 weeks. In this case, they're all blocked, right? So in most cases, these things are going to be showing, hey, here's the stuff that got blocked. You can go down and investigate it. You can see who the top targeted users are. So it's really leveraging the capabilities we released earlier this year, but putting a filter on top of it to give you that day-to-day sort of thing. So as new attacks happen, we'll put out a new threat tracker filter, let you explore that thing. And as Phil showed you a minute ago, we'll let you save some of those things. Now, the ones that come for noteworthy, you're not going to be able to adjust that. That's something we'll be managing and updating. But you may want to save your own copy because maybe somebody says, well, I'm concerned about the Ukraine, for example, which happened to be where the Petya virus and not Petya were all targeted and started off at. So in that sense, I could go adjust the attributes in my query in Explorer there, create a new one, and go say, hey, let's go save the Petya Ignite filter. And I can go save this off. And as you see here, I can now create some alerts and some reports on this stuff. So if the boss needs an actual report sent to them, I can have it generated. If I want to get an alert real time, see, hey, here's an issue you need to go deal with, I can go create one based on a specific event, or maybe I want it thresholded so I don't get a bunch of noisy emails coming in. So it gives you the ability to look and track things over time. And trending is the second one of these. I mentioned the noteworthy because it's one that is in the news. You'll see it all the time. There have been 2 or 3 of these in the last 6 to 9 months. But trending is a different sort of category. And I mentioned, how do you know when you're targeted? Well, as I said, we've actually analyzed the distribution of these different attacks. We do it at the virus or the fish level, and we compare what you're seeing to the rest of the Microsoft tenants. We're doing trending on this stuff too, so you can see what's happening today, what's happening yesterday, and how does this compare to last week? Because you may want to see, hey, there's a particular threat which is tracking up, and I'm now going through and seeing a lot more of these. Now, some of that stuff will be a little bit boring. You may say, oh, it's targeting, not very much here. But they are trending and going up. So if I actually scroll down here, we have started to see, looking at our own tenant data, where we see cases of attacks which are actually the number of emails coming in, for example, are way out of proportion. So I scroll down just a little bit. We're starting to get into some interesting numbers here. And we're starting to run this out soon into the Microsoft infrastructure and see what these things mean. But if you look and say, I'm getting 17, almost 0.5% of the global total of this particular virus, that's a pretty good indication you're being targeted. We have hundreds of thousands of tenants here. So if you're seeing 17.6%, seeing frankly anything above 5%, this is going to be something you need to go pay attention to. And so in this case, you can go see, look at this stuff, see what's going on, who are these targeted users, and get additional data. As Phil showed you, you can actually delve into the details and see what's going on. So I can actually track back and see if we had one built for that virus, which we don't in this case, what was going on for that one. But the global details here indicate that indeed, when we did this particular one, which was a few days back, that we were seeing a large portion of the worldwide traffic for this virus coming at our tenant. And so now I have something to go investigate because it can indicate that a particular hacker is targeting me, they're throwing a specific threat, and I might want to go look for more things around this. And as Phil showed you, now we can use the information about the IP address, the file names, the SHAs, investigate and see, hey, was this particular IP source being used to send any other traffic? So it's an indication that somebody's out to get you, and now you can use all this information for this particular attack to go find and understand whether it was other things coming at you for this particular attack. A lot of folks won't use necessarily just one virus. They have toolkits out there, so they'll do a number of different things. So all of this data now starts to let you show where you need to pay attention. So let's switch back over and look at the next item. The next thing is when you actually look at the stuff coming into your tenant, what's going on? How do you know Jason or William or Phil or Stu are getting targeted? And finding patterns in the attacks are important. As we started to go look at this stuff, Phil actually done some research on the Microsoft tenant, and we started to see odd patterns here and there, things like finance teams being targeted. And I think the illustration we had earlier of Jack and Jill and stuff like that is one good example of what people are trying to do. Might be steal information, might be stealing money. And so being able to understand out of all this mess of events coming in, who are the people actually getting attacked? Is it the finance team, the directors, the people over in Phoenix, are they in Redmond, are they in Orlando? Understanding that can be very important because then you have something to go investigate. You now know there's somebody trying to get to a particular team. LinkedIn's a great resource, great part of Microsoft. Unfortunately, it's a great tool for somebody to go in and find out in your organization, who are the people I need to go talk to? Who are the people I need to go get something from? Who do I need to compromise to get access to? And that last part is really important because this means it's now a tool, along with the rest of the World Wide Web, to investigate your organization and pinpoint people. Now with phishing, that's really important because now I can send a number of attacks at people. So in that case, I can come in and look and see with new values we're adding and enriching our data with who these people are. And we are doing it a couple ways. We're engaging 6 different attributes out of Azure Active Directory. They're the group, the title, the location, the classification or tag of the user, and the UPN and the username. Now, the last 2, you can't really group anything by, but those first 4 items, we can actually go through and analyze all the attacks, the phish, the malware coming in, to find who are these individuals in these groups. And you may not necessarily always see it as strictly, hey, the finance guys are being attacked, because they may try and come in on the side. But they'll probably do both things, because if they can get to Jack and Jill and Bob, they can now start to control the flow, but they may try some other folks. So being able to find where these things group together is really important. And then having all this data on the right side to go back through and filter on helps you investigate and understand what's going on. Yeah, question?
Why not department?
Good question. And I think that's where we're looking for inputs from folks like you to say, hey, let's go at these things. So department's a good suggestion. We are actually engaged with Azure, so we can pull all that stuff in. Phil?
We have departments. So
Yeah, we have department. That's true. It actually isn't.
And we've received some preliminary feedback about why not any AAD property. And the way that we've built this is we have a pipe that just enhances all of our data with the AAD properties. So we're looking at how can we bring in even custom properties that you have. So, because I heard from one organization, I put the level that that person is in one of them, and I want a report of everyone above level 12 or something. So, so those are capabilities that we're looking at bringing in.
Yep.
Yeah, we.
Yeah, you're right, and that's where I labeled department as group. So group actually means department in this case.
Yeah, it's actually the department property from Active Directory.
So when we look in the console here, we'll probably see the correct answer. Classification and tag is an interesting one. In many cases, you'll want to track specific users. Who are the finance people? Well, finance may actually spread across a number of departments, right? You may have vendor people, finance people, accounting people. Maybe there's an IT people on the finance side. So that's where things like classification or being able to tag users with certain tags allows you to say, here's my executive team. The executives span across, obviously, the top tier of the organization, but they may be in different departments. We are labeling here in the demo, you'll see them as HVEs and executives, but in your organization, they're going to be varying, right? You may have finance people. Maybe you have an online business, so you want to pay attention to operations folks because the operations folks have access to all of the environment you're dealing with. So let's go look at a demo of this stuff to see how do we bring in the targeted attack detection and then how do we help protect those VIP users and things going on in their environment. Let's click the right one there. All right, going back to Threat Tracker. If you were watching earlier, you probably noticed a little group down here called Targeted Campaigns. So at the same time we're analyzing your traffic versus the rest of the world's traffic for malware and phish, we're also analyzing that subset of traffic coming to you and comparing all these attributes on the users. And by doing that, we can then start to pull out the relevant information available here. You see, we've got 3 in the user interface right now. The 4th one of the classifications isn't shown, but it will be in there when we ship this. In this case, we're actually tracking and associating with one item at a time. So we're looking at what are the different attacks coming into these different groups. As you can see, we have folks on the finance director side, the executives, finance coming in. And I need to go pay attention to these folks and understand what to go do. And so in this case, I would probably click through these different things and be able to understand what has happened here. Who are the folks who are recipient job titles? And some of this stuff is example data. I may not necessarily always click through. But as you see on the right, we'll fill in the information here about what was delivered, who are the folks that got this stuff, and be able to track that stuff on a persistent basis. And then if you see this being a trend, you can go back over here now and save this query. So the system automatically detected this grouping. You're not going to make it a permanent thing you want to save off. So the idea of a saved query lets you put it in the pile. You can actually track these things actively, as we'll see in just a minute. So this capability here lets us find stuff for you, and then you can actually yourself save these things off as the system identifies them for you, or you can create your own queries based on what you see and have to do on a day-to-day basis. Now the tracked queries themselves will show up down here in this section. So you have things like maybe you're looking for a specific family of CVE things that are compromising particular vulnerabilities in applications. So you can look and analyze those things on a regular basis. This is something you might typically do if you're trying to provide security and understand, hey, how am I doing about my patching and stuff like that? The CVE search, for example, which searches across any family that has CV in the title, with that you kind of track back and see, are people actually using those on a regular basis right now? That would give you an idea of, am I under attack, and do I need to be concerned that my patching is fully up to date because there's these attacks and these new vulnerabilities coming out, for example. Now, I did mention the idea of saving the queries. If we actually click down into the Save Query space, we'll see a number of different things we've created for use in this particular tenant. And I may want to create different ones based on what's been there before, or I may go create other ones. And a good example here is fish to our high-value employees. Now, the saved queries by themselves is like a big stack of stuff I put on the side and I want to come back to periodically. The track queries will actually do trending, so they do day-to-day totals. They'll do totals this week compared to, or today compared to the rest of last week. The idea on all of these is to be able to very quickly get back to some real data. So in this case, you'll notice we switched back. As I clicked on it, I named it fish for HVs. That's high-value employees. In this case, we have a couple different labels for this. And if I click into the different views here, we'll see different sort of slices of data. So if I look at the actual recipient classification, for example, we're looking at the classification, the tag for these users. And as you can see in this case, up top, now we have all the emails messages which we're going to either a high-value employee tag, an executive tag, or an executive delegate. And that last one is equally important. When you start building out some of these classifications, you need to know not just the VIP, the executive, but the person who does the day-to-day scheduling for it. Their administrative assistant is actually critically important because guess what? They can send out messages on your behalf or your behalf. And so as we enrich this and as we enrich the capability around tracking user activities, we're going to be looking for things like sending on behalf of or sending as to make sure we're tracking that sort of thing. Because what could happen is the administrative assistant gets compromised, they start sending out emails because they're actually the hacker. Now, based on that sort of analysis, I can go in and start looking, as Phil was showing, what are the URLs, what are the clicks, what's going on. So it lets me then narrow down and say, which are these high-value people do I really need to pay attention to? Where are they trying to get to? And that's really the point of all of this information we're providing in here. Now, you'll also notice we have an advanced filter button over here on the side. And what it lets us do is add a fairly rich set of values from the data we've stored in the server. In this case, we have all the stuff associated with malware up top. The fish, the URLs down bottom, so I can add in a combination of, hey, I'm looking for this domain and path, I'm looking for this group, I'm looking for this set of things. And you'll also notice those values we were talking about earlier of recipient classification, location, job title, department, not group, department in there. And I can now add all these things in, so I can put and build filters out to look for specific groups. And as we move forward with threat intelligence, we're not only be looking and providing some out-of-the-box rules around high-value employees or executives, for example, but we're also looking at several other groups, things like watch lists, right? You have employees who maybe they've been in trouble, maybe they've been sharing their logins, maybe they're leaving the company in a week or two. So it gives you the opportunity to start looking and seeing how do you protect these users, whether they're a high-value employee, you need to monitor them more closely. Maybe in your organization, you actually have a specific team that monitors your executives, and this gives you a tool set now to track and evaluate their activity on those folks, or any other sort of group you want to maintain and manage. So I can go build this sort of query in here. I could say, look, let's go query specifically just the delegates. So I might say classification here. And I would put delegate. And I could add additional items in here by simply adding up additional settings here. So I might want to look at, when does people see, I've been seeing a lot of fed-x.com, for example. Actually, sorry, that's not URL. Survey. So I would add that to my query, and I can go search and find specific things. So if I think there's a particular threat out here, I can validate in this case, well, nobody's getting that particular fed-x fish because now I'm looking at that particular set of users. So now I have the ability to go save that thing, put an alert in, go create a saved report around that thing. So it gives you a lot more flexibility as you move forward with this stuff. All right, now email's great, lots of email. And obviously Microsoft deals a lot with email, but the reality is Office 365 and your organizations are about more than just email. You create documents and data all the time, and so while we've done a lot here in TI with the Exchange Online service and malware and spam now, as well as phishing, we are expanding it out to cover additional things. Stu and Phil both talked about threats coming through SharePoint. So we want to cover SharePoint, OneDrive, and as time goes on, more and more of the Office 365 properties and solutions with additional capabilities. So we've now expanded and are providing capabilities to monitor SharePoint activities, OneDrive activities, look for viruses there. If you attended the ATP session earlier, we announced the capability of doing malware analysis and detection using our ATP engine in SharePoint. And this gives us a rich set of data. Plus, we're looking now at other things that may be coming from those sources, things like risky user activity that Phil talked about, but also risky content activity. So external anonymous sharing, for example, might be an important thing. If you're using our DLP solution or our governance solutions, you've already started classifying things, labeling things. We want to use that data too, because when you look at what somebody's going to come do to attack your organization, they're probably looking for financial data, and user data, company data, bank accounts, things like that. So this rich set of things you've been using the Security and Compliance Console and our other solutions for will now get you the ability to analyze information in the system here in threat intelligence based on all of that stuff. So let's go do an additional demo here and a final wrap-up demo around some of the other types of activities we can look at. If you look at the list here, what you will see compared to what the production threat intelligence capability shows you, it's a bit richer. Phil went through and showed you a lot around phish, showed you submissions, so those are coming and brand new. One thing threat intelligence does is let you see all mail. So as we add these additional capabilities, you get a lot of that stuff rolling into the category itself. So things like all mail now tracks email activity around malware and phish, so you can see all of that, plus delivered mail. And the point here is that all mail view lets you find the stuff that got into somebody's inbox because it was either targeted and built so craftily it snuck by everything, or maybe it's the early wave of an attack and we can go clean that up after the fact. Likewise, as we start looking at the transition of somebody's now gotten in, we need to look at other activities. So risky content activity gives us a view of activity that may be abnormal. Now I see maybe, because like Phil illustrated, things can be pretty noisy. But you need this data to go analyze and understand where is the risk to your organization. Because if somebody got compromised, you might need to come in here and say, who's been doing external anonymous sharing? And if you notice down at the bottom here, we have classification data and label data. So using that filter up top, if I'm concerned about my finance, my credit card information, I now have the data in the system to go analyze and filter on that. So I can say, let's look at an external anonymous sharing of credit card data. Now, obviously, if you've set up DLP to block that, you would be catching those events, and you would see that sort of activity here. And as we move forward, we want to do more and more detection where maybe you haven't classified those sort of events and those items. So we'll start looking at sites as well. So you might have a sensitive site. So being able to detect based on not only when it's been classified, but maybe when the site belongs to a special owner like a VIP is going to be important moving forward. This also lets you determine cases and monitor concerns around insider threats. That may be the sales guy who just put in his notice. He's going to go up, grab some stuff out of SharePoint. Maybe he's got a bunch of customer lists he's going to take along with him. Well, that's not something that's traditionally malware, but it is a big concern for your organization because he's stealing, or she is stealing, personal information and information that's from your business. So that sort of stuff is what we want to make sure we're protecting here. And I can now use that as a way to look at these individual users to see and make sure they're not doing things once I've identified some odd activity elsewhere, that it hasn't spread over to other areas. Risky user is the other activity. And then as we look down at the bottom, there could also be challenges with classification of data. Somebody could come in and say, hey, look, I'm going to start declassifying data so I can do whatever I want with it. The other one we've added in here is SharePoint malware. And this is important because it's not just where an end user may have inadvertently put something up online, onto SharePoint because they downloaded a file, they got something off of a website, said, hey, this is a really cool set of instructions, ignoring that it had malware in it. It's also important because this is a vector for infection in your organization. As Stu and Phil talked about, we actually do testing inside the organization, and we actually found tremendous effectiveness recently by taking and sharing a link to a file over in SharePoint that actually had an attack in it. So by expanding our detections of malware in SharePoint, we're now protecting you with that. Plus, we have the ability to do safe links, so we can analyze and scan the links within inside of these things. So this is very important because now shutting down that vector for somebody malicious inside your organization or somebody outside who's now trying to use this as a vector to get it around. This saves you a lot of time and effort because if you've been using a third-party sharing service that doesn't do malware scanning, well, this gives you a safer alternative that you can use within the Office 365 family. All right, at this point, I think that covers most all of our new stuff. A lot of great new things in here. As Phil illustrated, Fish, we've got great ability to do threat tracking. We've got user attributes engaged in the solution. And we now have the ability here to monitor far more stuff than we've had before. So let's summarize up what we've presented today. We have continuously enhanced security by tying together a rich set of data, looking across your organization, looking across all of the Office 365 property to give you data relevant for investigating your threats, your environment, to make sure you can find problems and really get rid of the noise. Obviously, we have a lot of stuff about blocked activities, but being able to look at all malware and take data about one specific concern, look in all mail and start investigating is really, really important. That data enrichment we do to add in the user information, to add in attributes about the attack, the IP addresses, lets you get a much richer investigation experience using threat intelligence. We also have great, powerful machine learning capabilities to go through and mitigate those phishing campaigns that we'll leverage here and provide additional visibility about who those users were that were attacked. And last, the security insights based on those threat patterns, based on things, will become continually enriched as we add more and more capabilities. As our machine learning starts to understand more and more about your organization, we can really help flag better solutions for you. And the ATP team who's sitting up front here, they introduced a lot of other ones there as well that will also be added into the environment. So, as you've seen, threat intelligence provides you great broad visibility. We have linkage into not only what's in Office, we didn't actually show you where we tie into Windows Defender ATP, and you actually can launch an investigation over Windows Defender ATP from what I showed you here in threat intelligence. But we have lots of Windows customer great data about detections there flowing into the back end, which gets leveraged by Office to go detect these things, plus third-party data we use to make sure we're finding all the latest and greatest attributes. Plus, we have great threat intelligence reports and other information you can see from Threat Intelligence Console. The rich insights in terms of what attacks are trending, which ones are targeting your users, are critically important, and the ability to use the drill down dashboard really lets you investigate in a way which is efficient, fast, and find problems as quick as you can. Last, proactive defense is critically important, and response is equally important as we go on. All of this data we have now will let us help you find these things and then go respond to it, because things like blocking the clicks for the URLs might be one of the fastest ways to prevent these things from spreading. As we get richer data sets around external and anonymous sharing, we'll be able to remove access to those links from the end users, block that access from outside your organization for that sensitive data. And as time goes on and we enrich more and more data from the other services, we'll start to extend those protections to other areas as well. If you want to hear more about other features on Office 365 information protection, we have a phishing session coming up next over in W304 from our ATP team, and that's anti-phishing with Office ATP. Thanks for the time. If you have questions, I think we still have a few minutes left, 5 minutes left. I'll take them now. And if you're feeling shy, you can always come up to the front, chat with us as well. Thanks.